Morning everyone, this is my first foray into the recruitment sector as well, so be gentle with me. I'm here to talk about audio and specifically digital audio. I would say this, but everybody is talking about audio and I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes explaining why you should pay attention to it. Just to put this into context, so when we talk about digital audio, we're talking about 26 million people who listen to audio via a connected device every week. Now, they're not distinct from this 33 million that are listening to commercial broadcast radio. There's about 6 million here who just listen to a digital audio stream, but obviously people tend to either listen to their radio from an FM broadcast, but then might use other devices to listen to digital radio or digital audio. So when I talk about digital audio, I'm talking about radio streaming. So that is if you have an app for one of your radio stations on your phone, so that could be a Radio X, a BBC app, a Capital app, that could be listening via your laptop. Music streaming is Spotify, SoundCloud, other music streaming platforms, and then podcasting, which is probably the area where we've seen the most amount of growth. It's about a 50% increase year on year in people listening to podcast content. But the key thing here is all of this is listened to via a connected device, so it has an IP address. It doesn't include, just for a point of clarity, those DAB sets because they're not connected. And audio has been in the headlines all year. The FT said wireless mania is back and revived by the internet. A significant development in the role of sound in marketing at Cannes by Contagious. Contagious are a marketing research company, and why marketers should not neglect audio branding for Marketing Week. So it's really something that marketing and advertising are starting to take more notice of. Even the Swindon Advertiser are getting in on the act. They said Jamie and Francis's podcast gave us all mega lols. Actually, it is very funny, so you should try and listen to it. But the key things you need to know about digital audio are audiences are growing, people are listening to loads and loads of new content on new devices, and there's emerging ad technology which creates interesting new opportunities, especially around targeting. So 26 million people listen to audio every week in the UK, and that's up 15% year on year. So this is a mainstream activity. And probably one of the biggest pushbacks I get, especially when I first started talking about digital audio, was that it's just a load of spotty teenagers in their room listening to random EDM mixes. Well, it's not. So this is the breakdown from 15 to 55 of digital audio listeners, and you can see it's fairly representative of the general population. I mean, it does skew slightly younger, but it's fairly representative. And when you look at what devices they're listening on, it's fortunate I followed Ashley, because if you look at the smart speaker section, that was 0 a year ago. But we've seen a massive increase, and you saw from Ashley's chart where he saw what people are doing on smart speakers. Listening to audio is one of the major things that we've seen a huge trend in. But you'd expect people to be, just under half are listening on a smartphone and about a third on a PC. So the point here is people are listening to a lot of audio throughout the day on lots of different devices. And what that gives you is a really contextually relevant moment to speak to them. This graph is a really nice example to show when we talk about the rise of smart speaker listening to audio. So can anyone tell me what this peak here was, this big peak here? What day that was? Any guesses? No? That was Christmas Day 2017. So you can imagine a whole load of households around the UK getting their Alexa out of the box, setting it all up, and they've got, depending on what sources you believe, between 30 and 50,000 skills. And what are they asking? Play the radio. So what can advertisers do on smart speakers? It's great to have a skill, and there's some really great examples of engaging with it, but you need to be able to find that skill and direct people and aid discovery. So things you can do. One is target by location to a city level. Target by content type, so that can be sport content, news content, comedy content, music content. and target by day part. So we can see from our streaming activity on these devices what time, for instance, Radio X listeners wake up in the morning. It's 6:30 because we see a massive spike. So if you're targeting by day point, that gives you a really, really interesting approach for understanding contextual relevance. And we're seeing advertisers starting to do some really interesting stuff in this. Now, obviously, this is not a recruitment example. Well, it kind of is actually in a way. Is anyone familiar with Channel 4 Humans? So it's the show, for those who haven't seen it, it's the show about what happens when bots or robots are put into kind of the human society and the psychological and physiological aspects of that, what happens. So I'll play the ad, and this is the ad asking people to take the human test.
The following promotes Humans on Channel 4.
This is an advertisement for nsdu.co.uk. Every day, technology is getting more and more like us. That's why everyone must now take the human test. Simply tell your voice assistant to start human test and answer all questions truthfully. It's nothing to worry about. Do it now to avoid further action. Start human test now or visit nsdu.co.uk. Detect and protect. The NSDU is a branch of the Ministry of Special Technologies. We're here for your protection. You're required to cooperate with our agents.
So that's a really nice example of a broadcaster having a bit of fun with this piece of kit. But you could see how that could easily be transferred to the jobs market. And actually, once you go into the skill, the questions can get quite deep. Things like, if robots had feelings, should they be granted human rights? So you can see how you could start to get really engaged and have some conversation with this. The other area that we get asked an awful lot about is connected cars and the growth of connected cars. So yes, they will be massive. 65 million connected cars are due to be shipped next year, which seems really big, but there are 1.2 billion cars around the world. So although we're already starting to see people listening to audio in Teslas, the scale at the moment is so small, and generally people's preferred route to listen to audio at the moment is still broadcast. But it's definitely one to watch for the future because it's quite interesting. So the key thing to take away from this section is that lots of people are listening to audio and they're doing so while they're partaking in other activities. So if you think about how that can help you, that's when people are on the morning commute, popping out for lunch, they're at the end of a really, really horrible day. But it's also when they're at home, when they're relaxing, when they're on a Sunday night, when they're thinking about what to do and what they're going to do for the next week ahead. Touchpoints is a study which, for those who aren't familiar, which looks at what people are doing and how they're feeling throughout the day. And so we looked into the study, and it said 92% of people listen while partaking in another activity, as I've just mentioned. And the other thing, I think, one of the challenges with audio is it often feels quite intangible. Because we're used to press or digital or things that we can see. But I think the easiest way to help get our heads around audio is to think about the type of content that you'll be seen in. So it's all about whether that's about your favourite radio stations or the music that you're choosing to listen to on your streaming service, whether it's about being in news content like Business Wars or The Week Unwrapped, or sports. So the ATP now have a 24-hour digital radio station, which has exclusive interviews, exclusive coverage of all tennis coverage. There's a huge growth now in health and well-being, which has really shifted the female bias into listening to audio. And then you've got fascinating stuff from comedy may be funny, drama, fascinating stuff really unfolding here. In major Hollywood stars are now kind of getting in on the act with America 2.0, which stars Lawrence Fishburne. So the point here is you can really tap into the passion points of the people that you're trying to target and speak to through audio and understanding the context and the content that you'll be a part of, which gives you that kind of emotional connection, which sometimes can be lacking, but is oh so important. The other thing which I really get excited about with digital audio is the targeting that you can do. So you can target by segment. So you could identify people who are really into technology. You can identify people who are obsessed by coffee. Or you can use your own advertiser or employer data and use that to create a more efficient targeted campaign where you can learn more about who's responding to your ads. The other great thing is location targeting. So with digital audio, you can target to within 1 kilometre of a radius, of a point of interest. So again, there's some really clever stuff you can do there, just about understanding, contextually tapping into those moments when you know somebody is in a specific place. One thing I'd say about this is it's important not to be creepy with it. So bear in mind, you don't want the person that's listening to it to think that you are following them, but you can do it in really clever ways. Another way, which is relatively new, is by looking at personality traits. So the way you would target somebody who is particularly open to new experiences, or would be very different to the way you would target somebody who is very conscientious. And those definitely will appeal to certain types of jobs. You can now map the kind of 5 key personality traits of people into digital audio and create segments to target. I think that could be so useful for recruitment. And all of these things can then be put into dynamic audio. So dynamic audio is just basically making sure that you personalize the message. So knowing when and where you're speaking to somebody and communicating that in the ad. You can input things such as the weather, such as location, even the type of food that you think they might be interested in, but in this case, it's probably more likely to be the type of jobs that they're interested in, to make your advertising really, really cut through. So I'm going to take you through a couple of examples. These are not recruitment examples, but they will show you how audio has the unique capability to really drive actions and in a way that builds an emotional connection. First up was B&Q. So they wanted to overcome the challenge of, we all know, like basically when it's wet, no one goes into store, and it really affects the jobs that you're going to do in a DIY scenario. So you're not going to paint when it's rain. You're going to paint outside when it's raining. You're not going to do gardening when it's raining. So they ran dynamic ads based on the location, the weather, and the type of DIY project to drive people into store. And the key thing for you is this action for me is the ability to get people into store. And they were able to drive 8,000 additional store visits simply by using that personalised audio mechanic. Another example is Virgin Atlantic. So very difficult category for them to cut through in. And what they did was they synced audio with outdoors. So they knew where their outdoor posters were, and they targeted their audio to those specific locations so that somebody saw a poster and heard the ad. And they saw a 20% increase in bookings. Final section from me is just about what you can learn from digital audio about how people are interacting on your own site. So working with hundreds of advertisers, 300 in fact, over 14,000 campaign strategies, you're able to track users from when they heard the audio to what they go on to do on your website afterwards. So you can tell, you can get this is a dashboard that it's all available in, but you can get real-time actionable data from this that allows you to test, learn and improve on your audio campaign. Now, using radio and broadcast radio, you were never able to do this before, but working with this technology, you can now apply effectively what is a cookie-type mechanic to your ad server, which allows you then to understand, once somebody's heard the ad, what they go on to do. So working with the Department of Education, we were able to identify the time it would take between somebody hearing the audio ad and going on to the site, the recruitment site, and taking an action. We were able to identify the most responsive part of the day and day of week, and then how engaged that user was, so how many page views they were looking at. Another example is eBay, which is arguably the biggest classified platform in the world. They were able to understand which categories, so for you guys, which job sectors were most efficient and which audiences were responding most directly to that. They're optimizing for those audience and seeing really big uplifts in their tricky sectors. So to summarize for me, I guess it's people are listening to digital audio of all ages. The rise in screenless devices is a massive opportunity, and understanding how audio as an emotional medium can help communicate your messaging, and advertisers are seeing significant ROI from it. Thank you.